Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Seems like ever since COVID, many of us have immunity on our radar in terms of our immune system, immune-related diseases, illnesses that many of us deal with, new diagnosis or diagnoses, I'm not really sure how that's said, that come out all the time. We're going to look at immunity today with somebody that has an interesting perspective on it because she is a medical intuitive. She uses her intuition to diagnose or at least provide information and insight in what's going on with us. I know it sounds a little woo-woo out there, but I've seen it in action. She's amazing. Dr. Gloria Warren is back with us. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm hoping our immune systems are good too. I guess you never know. Uh, is it because of COVID that it's more on our radar?
Well, I think it may increase the population's awareness
Hmm.
of immunity and where our bodies are at. And at the same time, it may have increased the immunity, but it also decreased immunity in many of us. If you had gotten COVID, it would have maybe increased immunity against COVID, but decrease your immunity against many other things. So we overstressed our bodies.
Yeah, well, you know, that's a great point where when you factor in stress, it takes down your immune system. We don't really realize that from time to time, right?
Huge cause of lowered immunities is stress. And that can
Wow.
be from many different things, of course. So, what I'd like to do is just go through some of the symptoms and see
Please.
if many of our listeners are having some of these symptoms. They can always contact me and we can discuss it and try to zero in on the exact cause of those symptoms and potential solutions for them to take back to their physicians and discuss with them. Many different things in the medical community, and it's hard for a physician to actually eliminate different things on their um, chain reaction type of deductive reasoning. So my part in the system is I can pinpoint things for the physician to even go that next step further. And I can give the patient various solutions that maybe they can start right away.
Hmm. And just before we dig into that side note, your skills, your intuition can be used as a tool in conjunction with your medical doctor. We're not saying, abandon all medicine, traditional medicine, and doctors. No, you work in concert with them. So yeah, let's take a look at the what people might be suffering from and how it correlates to their immune system.
So there are many symptoms for um, a low immunity and things that if people are having problems with, it may be a signal that, hey, maybe my immunity is getting too low. So the usual are fatigue and frequent infections, hair loss could be a symptom, GI issues. There's some masked symptoms such as blood disorders, anemia, and certain diseases such as lupus can actually be a symptom of a low immunity as well. On the other hand, there's an overactive immunity, which can increase asthma, eczema, allergic rhinitis, autoimmune diseases such as lupus and others. So there's so many different symptoms. I'm sure anybody can probably go on Google and try to find others. Check out your symptoms and see what you think, or you could always text me your symptoms and I can just, figure out where we go from there. Now, immunity in itself, though, there's many different causes from a lowered immunity. And it's not like, hey, it's just everyone's got the same problem. Immunity is low. Let's all take vitamin B6 or vitamin D and our immunity will go up. It doesn't always work that way because most of the time, everyone's system is a unique system and they need to have a unique circumstance. So I look at the causes. It could be a lifestyle, it could be diseases, it could be genetic, it could be caused from medications. So when I say that, I mean lifestyle, are you a smoker? Do you drink alcohol? poor nutrition, diet habits. Your sleeping habits may not be what they should be. It could be caused from different diseases like HIV, AIDS, and just being sick overall can cause a lowered immunity over time. Everyone has probably experienced that, where you may get the flu and then all of a sudden you have a cold right after, and oh my gosh, I have an infection in my finger or something. We can overtax our immunity too. So medications is something else that can increase the problem. It can lower the immunity, and that can be caused from steroids, radiation, cancer treatments. Sometimes organ transplant patients will be on certain medications that lower their immunity, so their body stops overreacting towards the new tissue in their system, because they don't want it to have a reaction, obviously. So, there's things we can do in the solutions section. We can look at the nutrition and maybe increase vitamins. That's probably like the first standard approach. Vitamin D, A, C, E, zinc, vitamin B6, selenium. Those are usually my favorite ones. There's also herbs, echinacea, ginger, astragalus, golden seal, maitake mushrooms. Something to keep in mind when you add things to your diet in a supplemental form or with food itself is you can't get too much of a good thing, unfortunately. For instance, I think in the 60s, there was a big push on echinacea. Well, echinacea, when taken too long, can actually cause a liver disorder. So you need to be careful how long you take things and how much you take. So you need to do everything in balance, and that's what I'm all about, is balance. There's other ways to increase your immunity, and that could be immunity boosters. And stem cell transplants is another thing. So you have your symptoms, you have your causes, and you have your solutions, but there's more to it than just what I said. So, but this is a basic. And if you feel like something is not in par with your immunity, maybe you have lupus disease, that's an overactive immunity. There are things that I can suggest to the physician through research that he may not know about. So, like I said, we need Western medicine, Eastern medicine, we need herbology, and we need different types of medicine, and we need to combine them as a bridge and use them in balance within your system. So that's my role in the medical community and what I try to do. And I try to identify, I try to give solutions, and assist physicians and other practitioners in their job.
What about antibiotics?
Well, like I said, we need Western medicine too. So the problem we have with herbs and Chinese medicine, they don't always work right away. And if you have pneumonia, and let's say you have liquid in your lungs forming and swelling and you can barely breathe, you need antibiotics. Don't wait till the last minute. That's the thing. You can't expect a physician to do miracles too. People do die in the United States from pneumonia. So they may not have gone in soon enough. So you need to know what to look for with cases like that, and don't wait too long. Antibiotics do have their place in keeping our body healthy and strong, and it's necessary sometimes.
What about overdoing it with antibiotics?
Yes,
it's so easily, hey, take another Z-Pack, 4 days and you'll be fine.
No, that unfortunately will cause diseases in the long run. And
that's where I'm going with that, and especially your immune system. How does that look to you?
Well, the main problem that I have when people come to me with that situation where they're antibiotic after antibiotic after antibiotic is they're not repopulating the healthy bacteria in their body so their body can fight infection on its own. So they are lowering their immunity. They may need to take it. Like I said, if you have pneumonia, take some antibiotics, amoxicillin, whatever is prescribed to you. And then towards the end of your treatment time, you need to add probiotics. And that doesn't mean just pop an acidophilus pill. Acidophilus is only one of many probiotics your body would need to recoup and build its own immunity back. So there's many different ones. So what I would do is balance out. There's a main 5 that I go by a general rule. Look at your yogurt, even make sure there's more than just 1, 2, or 3 healthy bacterias in there.
Hmm.
And then you need to have a prebiotic, and a prebiotic feeds the healthy bacteria that you're going to be putting back into your body. It feeds that so that it can stay healthy as well. So then you can create a long-term solution with the bacterias in your GI tract, and then in turn in your bloodstream and thereforth.
We mentioned different types of supplements, vitamins. As a baseline, I know, there can be variations here, but B6 or a B complex vitamin. Let's say you just want to be proactive. You don't want to overdo it. You want to take maybe one a day.
Right.
How much
Yes.
should you be taking of some of these different vitamins or minerals?
Well, I think the most important thing to remember is certain vitamins are water-based, certain vitamins are oil-based. And oil-based vitamins, you need to watch how much you take because you can take too many. If you take water-based vitamins, vitamin Bs are usually, they can be flushed out of your system simply with water. So it's hard to get too much, but I know the daily recommended doses I don't feel are enough,
Hmm.
especially if your body is overstressed. Um, say a 50-year-old man, they say it's 1.3 milligrams of B6. Well, I would say it's at least double to that or more. And you need to watch milligrams or micrograms, mg versus mcg.
Hmm.
So if there's 10 micrograms, that means there's 100 milligrams. No, if there's 100 milligrams, there's 10 micrograms. Sorry, I had to reverse that. So you can't go by micrograms. A lot of companies do list things in micrograms because it looks like you're getting more. Let's say if they say 100 micrograms, you're like, oh, but it's 100 in there. Yeah, but that's only 10 milligrams. That's practically nothing. So you need to watch out on the marketplace as a consumer how much you're actually getting. Things like vitamin D, that's quite different.
Hmm.
Um, D is a more it's not water soluble, so you can't flush it out. My suggestion with that is go ahead and take take the suggested amount that's on the bottle, and if you're ill, take double for the first 3 days, and then go down to the regular daily amount. With water-based, I would say you could probably do 2 or 3 times more than on the recommended daily amount, but then you don't want to do that long term. Nothing long term, such as zinc. Zinc is a good example.
Hmm.
Zinc in itself, it can be flushed out with water. It helps to it works like a birth control pill against viruses. It hinders the reproduction of viruses in your system. So, like, if you think you're maybe getting a virus that you don't want to get, obviously, but you have the symptoms of getting a virus, then you can probably take, I would say, 50 milligrams twice a day for the first 3 days, and then drop down to 50 milligrams for a couple days, and then drop down to 25 milligrams for a couple days. You don't want to take too many because it can offset your red blood cells. So everything has a positive effect, but also a negative effect if you oversaturate your system. So there's a lot of different things to keep in mind. That's
Wow.
another place that I come in.
Yeah, and the zinc thing, I learned that lesson. I used to take zinc. Uh,
Yeah.
like you said, it keeps you healthy, wards off a cold, and yeah, I would get a lozenge. And I was like, it's almost like candy.
Yeah.
And pop one as I'm driving in the car. Have another one. Didn't realize that it can wreak havoc with your stomach, especially if you have an ulcer or have some digestive issues, and it can make it worse. And it did. So I don't take it anymore. And the vitamin D, thanks for sharing that it's oil based. I wasn't aware. I don't know if I shared with you that last year I was diagnosed with low level of vitamin D, like the lowest a doctor has ever seen, and I got on prescription for a couple of months of I think it was like 50,000 units per week. And so I still wrestle with that. Probably due for another blood test to see where the level is at. But then I learned so much about vitamin D in that it helps with the absorption of other vitamins. So it's kind of essential in our bodies.
Yes, it is. Unfortunately, um, vegetarian, vegans, they're not getting the essential vitamin D's and iron, heme iron specifically, which is only in um, human meat, basically. Um, and you cannot get heme iron anywhere else. You cannot. If you do, it's coming from meat. But that is an immunity booster. And if you take out your lactose from your dairy, lactose is an immunity booster as well. And you take out your meat, you're losing immunity boosters as well. And, you're also losing certain levels of iron. And a lot of things that you're taking out of your diet, you need to supplement. And if you cannot supplement, you need to realize that even the Dalai Lama eats meat. He eats chicken
Hmm.
because, as Gandhi said on the university steps when he was giving his speech, for healthy people, it is a good idea to be a vegetarian. And yes, that's true. But if you're having a problem, it may not be healthy for you, or you're not healthy enough for your body to sustain it yourself without those things in your diet. So sometimes you have to give and take a little bit so your body can get healthy again. And it doesn't mean, and this is what I tell them all the time, because I was a vegetarian for the longest time too. But this is why I tell them, you don't have to eat the choice cuts of meat. You don't have to contribute to the killing of anything. You could take the scraps of what other people, what they don't want, and you can make something very healthy for your body. It's something nutritious. So keep that in mind if you're going through a medical situation, where you're going to need the extra nutrients of things like meat and dairy products. The other thing too about lactose, I do want to mention here, lactose people are lactose intolerant because they have not had lactose for a while. Don't have lactose in your diet on daily or every couple of days, you'll become allergic to it. But you can
Wow.
reverse that by slowly intertwining it back into your system. You may have to take lactate at first for the first few months until your body gets used to it again. What is it? When you're allergic to something, expose yourself more to it. People do that with honey and honey from their local region, because if you expose yourself to certain things that you're allergic to at low doses, you can increase that dose and eventually you're not allergic to it anymore. And
Uh that's uh that's a wake up call. It's funny because I reached into the cabinet the other day and pulled out a jar of honey, and I bought it at a local farm stand, but they actually got it from a place in another part of the state. And now you're reminding me of something I heard a while back, that if you use honey, just throw it in tea or whatever it might be, um, and it's not from your region, that can be problematic. Am I right in thinking that?
yes, you should always try to eat honey in your region that you're living in. Or let's say I'm going to go to Arizona. Well, I'm in the Midwest, so I may actually purchase some honey from Arizona to try and, desensitize my system towards those allergens in there. And maybe then when I go there, I won't be as allergic. I'm one of those people that have a hyper response because my immunity is a little too high. So I'll be doing that when I go places if I'm
Wow.
planning on it.
Mm. And and you mentioned about the lactose. I wasn't aware of that you can basically make yourself lactose intolerant. Let's say somebody has ice cream and they have some digestion issues and they attribute it right to the dairy. It might not necessarily be, but in their mind they start cutting back on it. Man, I'm just going to ease back on it, ease back on it, ease back on it, to the point where now they're lactose intolerant. I wasn't even aware of that.
Right. And lactose, it used to be, I study historical medicine. I go back all the way to ancient Egypt, even further if I can. And this is like my love of life. This is my hobby, anywhere and anything I could read, find old books and whatnot. One of the things known is when people were, say, sick or elderly, they would feed them whey. The whey is the clear liquid you see on the top of um, cottage cheese and on top of yogurt. That is whey. And that
Okay.
we're talking a lactose product that increases their immunity. Plus, it helps to keep some weight on them with some nutrients and protein. So very important, though. Lactose, it has been used since the beginning of man, and it's a natural type of thing for us to say, well, maybe our babies, because we're human, we give them human milk. We don't think maybe that we should be getting it from a cow, or it's still whey. And still lactose in there, no matter what dairy.
Well, it's so funny you say that, Gloria, because when we open up a container of yogurt, what's the first thing we do?
People like to spill it off, and that's don't do that.
That nasty
Mix
liquid what's ooh, can we get that off of there? Yeah, I had no idea that was whey. I thought that was just
that's
I
what
don't
whey
know.
is.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So that used to be the only food at certain points when people were on, very weak. They would feed them whey, make them drink whey, and it would help bring them back.
I not nearly as deep as you, but share that affinity for the way things were back in the day. Like I look back, my affinity is like 1800s, mid 1800s. There was a little bit of technology. There were pictures, just emerging photography. So you could see in not just a painting or a picture, a drawing, a real picture. And just looking back at that time where I'm curious how many people were ill and what they were dealing with at that time. There wasn't no fast food. There wasn't all of the stuff that we have now, which essentially, I think you would agree, in our food supply pollutes us in many regards. It's fascinating when you look at it, what people were eating and what their lives were like and what they weren't dealing with, what we're dealing with today.
Right. And there's a lot of things outside, even in my yard, that I can eat and survive on. And it's a shame that and just like if you get a cut, what do you grab to grind up and pack it on when you don't have medicine? That's a love of life survival. I'm not a prepper, I'm a survivalist. So
yeah,
I take all that and use it. So,
but
and
what
the
do people
basic rule
do?
for that. The basic rule for that, for infection, is anything bitter, especially like dandelion leaves. You can crush them up, dandelion roots. You can make a tincture with them and put it on and sterilize your hands,
Wow.
bitters.
Yeah, I didn't know that. And of course, yeah, you can't just go out in the backyard and start picking stuff and thinking that you can, put it on a cut or a scrape or something.
Or to add to the balance, though.
Exactly. We're just scraping the surface as to what you offer. And we didn't even go deep into the intuitiveness. We've done that before. But thank you for all the info and the insight. And if somebody is wondering, maybe has questions about some of the stuff that we're talking about today, how do they find you?
So they can text is best, 715-892-6304. That's 715-892-6304. Or they can look at my website, medicalintuitivegloria.com. Very simple. But for contacting, please text that phone number. That is the best.
You're available. Our traditional doctor, not so much. Let's be honest. It is what it is.
I help them with the research portion of what they do. So
exactly. Yeah. And you're you're a tool that can be used in terms of diagnosis for the doctor.
Right. I have a doctorate in research, so that's what
absolutely.
I'm doing.
Yeah. Gloria, always great talking with you, and I've learned so much. And I was going to have yogurt today because it was just about to expire. I know what I will be doing or won't be doing, if you want to look at it that way.
Mix it up.
Mix it up. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.